Дамы и господа, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Вы смотрите и слушаете Rashkin Report. My name is Yuri Rashkin, and this stream will be in English because I am excited to welcome my weekly partner in podcasting adventures, host of Silicon Curtain, Jonathan Fink, who happens to be in Ukraine right now,
In
while I
Ukraine.
am in
Here we
Wisconsin.
are. Name
So,
the building. We'll have a little
Jonathan,
online
amazing.
competition. Do people know what this is? That's the big question. And where it is as well. That's also quite an important question.
Well, you're in front of a building that is standing.
It's standing. People might see here the windows are a little blown out. Needs some repairs, which are currently undergoing. But basically, and you can see the steps are somewhat damaged. That was, I think, a missile kind of exploded just in front of it. Hasn't damaged the building. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That kind of tells you something about, I think, the contempt Russia has for international law, institutions, norms, values, civilization. Plivat na все это. I think that's quite clear.
Can you talk a little bit about what happened last night?
Well, I'm just catching up with friends. Checking they're all alive and unharmed. A good friend of mine, Philip Ittner, the building next to his apartment was a drone exploded outside it. So this is very close and personal to a lot of people. And I think that's what a lot of Ukrainians do. They spend the time in the shelters of the metro, texting each other just to making sure they're alive and unharmed. And then, of course, when they come out of the shelters, if they've got access to a shelter, they need to check their properties to make sure that they weren't hit or in the proximity. So that's a lot of people communicating. There's a lot of people sharing memes, I think, when they're putting up with these huge strikes. Yesterday seemed to be in Kyiv, one of the largest strikes of the war. Certainly, it's one of the greatest losses of life. I think 20 is the current count of people killed, with many more injured. And it seems to have intentionally hit as many districts as possible right across Kyiv. So I wasn't there. I was in Kharkiv. So let's do the big reveal. This is the famous Держprom building in the center of Kharkiv, a masterpiece of modernism, and it is actually a spectacular building. I'm not a huge fan of modernism. This is a beautifully designed building. It is absolutely fabulous, and we can see, there's been, various hits on this, and the city bears the scars of it. But here in Kharkiv, it was a very peaceful night. But during the day, it was hit by 7 cab bombs. And if people know, they're quite high explosive charge there. There's more explosive than you get in the average average drone. And they're a little bit more, a lot more indiscriminate than drones and even missiles. So 7 cabs in a single day, Kharkiv really, they felt it, as it were, before Kiev did. But we did our stream last week. A lot of people in Kiev, if it's just a mass drone strike, a lot of people sleep through that, as strange as it seems. They actually okay, drones, yeah, whatever. And actually the hit rate, the strike rate is very low. The air defense rate of taking those out is quite high, in the sort of 90 to 95 kind of percent range, as figures we very often see. So actually, you're unlikely to be hit by a drone. It's vanishingly small, and the air defense is doing its job. Maybe a blomki, as they say, or shards might do some damage and blow out windows. The intercept rate on missiles has dropped precipitously, and it's around 40 to 50%, I believe, based on recent figures. I think last night, many more of those missiles got through. Actually, the majority did. So that causes absolute carnage. Ultimately, the Russia is entirely to blame for everything. We don't want to take any of that blame away. But certainly, there are a number of factors that are helping them to commit that carnage. One of those, of course, is the reduction of Patriots that are being provided by the US. The absolute refusal, as it seems, to pass over the IP so that Ukraine could create its own interceptors. That was promised by Biden, has never been delivered. And then, of course, we have the ludicrous, pointless war against Iran, which has used many interceptors or stock of interceptors in a profligate way. So the US, and apologies to my US friends here, the US is very much enabling this barbaric slaughter by Russia, directly enabling, I'm afraid to say.
What message do you feel Russia and Putin is trying to send, and what message do you think people of Ukraine are actually receiving, and what are they hearing? What are they getting out of this? You know,
What they're getting has not changed. I mean, it hardens hearts against. I won't even use the word giving in, because that's just not a question. That's not a question in anyone's minds. Giving into this terror, giving into this savagery. But I think this is where it diverges. I think Putin probably believes that this works psychologically. Maybe his minions are telling him, yeah, keep bombing, keep slaughtering, and eventually they'll give up. They'll decide that, oh, you know, we have this incredible fear and etc., and finally break their spirit and their will. But of course, the reality is the absolute opposite. The more this happens, the less likely it is that anyone's going to want to give in. These strikes happen, it increases donations to units, it increases people's participation in volunteer organizations, intercept battalions. I'm sure it probably increases the number of people who are prepared to go into the armed forces. So it's entirely ineffective. It is terror pure and simple, but really without much impact. I don't think it's having any strategic impact either, unlike the Ukrainian strikes on Russian fuel, which I guess we'll come to in a minute, which are having a tremendous impact. And this is where Putin, maybe his minions, are a little bit confused. This myth that Russians can, you know, put up with suffering unlike anybody else, this almost superhuman ability to absorb trauma and suffering, we see from the videos of people whinging and whining in petrol queues and you know, sitting there and swearing about their delayed flights in Sheremetyevo and stuff. These people are not used to inconvenience. These people do not take suffering very well at all. And in fact, they're not really suffering yet. Ukrainians will tell you they're not suffering nearly enough. Don't worry, they will be soon. But I don't think, yeah, they see a resilience there. You don't see a resilience there in the whinging, the whining, the zednityo either, which Michael Narka calls it. I think Putin looks at that and thinks like, okay, well, you know, Ukrainians are just they're just like this lot, right? And if we keep pushing and pushing, they're going to fold and crumble and crack and whine like our own sort of, you know, cattle-like population does. But that's not going to work here. And especially in this
it
city.
seems like Putin is stuck deeply, and
Yeah.
this is almost like some kind of a therapy or self-care for a dictator. When he realized that everything is going to crap, he got drunk and bombed Kyiv. You know,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
wouldn't
so
call it
boring.
self-care. It's psychosis. It's psychosis. Let's call it what it is. It's like, why won't they give up? Why won't they do what I want? Pachinitsa, bayitsa. Why won't they fear me? Why won't they just buckle under and take the authority? What do I have to do to make these people understand that this is how you bring order? This is how we, you know, establish the Russian world, Novorossiya. I think there's a complete lack of comprehension. But you see, he's desperate. But that desperation doesn't soothe him. I think he's lashing out in absolute vindictive anger, even when he sees it's not working. I think this is his instinct. It's the instinct of a psychopath, frankly.
Well, and then tell us about your trip, Jonathan. Like, I'm amazed by you continuously because you are spending these days a substantial amount of time in Ukraine, and it's the war is still going on, and
Yeah.
very clearly, as we just got done speaking. So tell us about projects you're working on, and tell us what you're seeing. I can talk about World Cup these days. That seems like that's most of what is occupying our information space. But I gotta say that the attack on Kyiv was headline number one. So that
Oh,
is
it
important.
has. Okay, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen any of the headlines. I'm glad that it's covered because it was brutal, you know. And as I was saying, people sleep through a lot, and no one slept through last night. I mean, people have described it to be as terrifying and brutal, and they've used the word savage. You know, I've done a couple of episodes where I talk about savagery. And of course, this is one that I think is more and more important. I'm sorry to interrupt and go on for a complete
I don't
tangent.
know, but do you think that this will affect how Ukraine is going forward with its battle plans as
No.
far as the 40-day
Oh,
window
well,
or anything like that?
no, they're going to accelerate. They're going to continue to accelerate the strikes on petrol infrastructure because clearly that's causing some pressure. I doubt whether that will result in political change, but it's clearly finally getting through to the population. I wouldn't call them the citizenry, but the population that the war is real and there are consequences, even if some of them can't even make that physical connection, like, we attacked Ukraine and they're attacking back. Again, they treat it a bit like the BBC. They're not naming the cause. Some mysterious force has caused all the petrol to stop flying. I wonder what it could be, and maybe some people are genuinely confused by that. But the pressure is working, and they're having to commandeer fuel for the military. Even we've seen pictures of some civilian police cars waiting in petrol queues. So, if it's working, they should definitely keep that up. But I think this is just the start. Honestly, if they end that now, if there's Western pressure to end that now, it's not going to have any strategic effect. So I think we're at the beginning of the end, but we're only right at the beginning of the end. It's going to take a lot more pressure and a lot more strikes to bring about something. And I'm not sure we or the Ukrainians even know what that something will be. But if you put pressure on the system, then something eventually will break. If you don't really quite know how that system is constructed, you don't know which bit of that architecture is going to break first. But that is the only strategy. And there's a couple of things that I think are interesting about this. One is the narrative that when they're defeated, do Russians try to... Well, there's certain things. One, they'll potentially blame it all on Putin. We don't have anything to do with it. We never agree with the war. It's all that Putin's guy fault. Another narrative, which I think we need to watch out for, even amongst people who are well-intentioned perhaps, will be, in the end, the war was ended by Russia because we collapsed. It was a humanitarian gesture on our part. We collapsed, and, there might be a narrative that tries to steal the victory away from Ukraine, as if it was some mystical force that eventually led to the Russian collapse, as if it was some conscious act by Russians themselves to embrace defeat. I think we need to give the accreditation where it's due. This is Ukraine's victory and Ukraine's victory alone. And I think when the collapse does happen, we've had 4 years of essentially Russians as a mass doing really nothing to hold their leadership to account, doing nothing to end the war, doing nothing to even diminish it. There are a few people who are obviously involved in sabotage and whatever, but the broad mass of the population has either done nothing or they've been entirely complicit or benefited financially, etc., from it. So I think we have to be wary of various narratives that are going to pop up that will seek to steal the agency of a Ukrainian victory when it does come.
Well, and it's going to be an important point to protect peace after winning peace and after winning war. I think that there's a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about. First of all, we have, of course, comments from our wonderful viewers who are writing, Putin doesn't care. He's going to conduct genocide against Ukrainian citizens until the end of his days. Ukraine
Yes.
Ukraine needs engines for ballistic rockets and rockets themselves.
Yes, totally agree. Putin's not going to stop. I mean, he's gone beyond anything that is even rational within his framework. He's gone beyond anything that makes any sense, even within the perverse, imperial mindset of Russia. I think he's got what they call a punktik. He's got a mental fixation on this, and now he's got himself into such a hole. There's really no way out of it. So. Yeah, and I think most Ukrainians, to go back to your question earlier, what do they expect out of this? Well, they expect their forces to strike back. They expect that this won't end until Russia is on the verge of absolute collapse. Many Ukrainians, and they won't say this on camera, are rather worried that actually there may be some negotiation or pause in hostilities that at the last minute prevents Russia from falling apart. Because I think most people here, if they're honest, and I actually agree with them, That's an existential risk. Russia that is let off the hook, a Russia that is allowed to have some kind of pause, is a Russia that will. It's like with the Terry Pratchett. It's Putin's all the way down. There's nothing to
See,
stop
the
this
thing is
reigniting.
that,
So I think many Ukrainians want to finish the job.
see, here's the thing, Jonathan. I feel like if Putin had any common sense, he would stop long ago. Since
Yes.
he doesn't, we may have a president of the United States who is willing to give Putin anything he wants as long as he stops.
Yes,
But as
correct.
long as Putin is
It's not just
to
him.
stop,
It's not just Trump.
continuing. I
Yeah.
know, but
Let's
it's
not
continuing
put
because
this all
I
on
live in
Trump.
America, so that those are kind of
Yeah,
my.
yeah.
But I
Well,
think
no, I mean, for our Republican audience who are listening, which is probably none at all, I have to say this isn't just a Trump problem. This is bureaucrats and politicians in the West, in Brussels, in London, in Berlin. They would desperately embrace a false peace.
No,
They're
but
desperate
I
to
just want to
embrace
finish
it.
my
Yeah,
point, Jonathan.
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like what gives me hope is that Putin is nuts.
Oh, yeah. Totally, yeah. He's not going to give up.
Right,
He's
and
not
this
going to
is going
stop
to lead
because
to
he's
greater
nuts.
destruction of Russia.
It will, 100%. He's going to carry on till he's dead, as your commentator said.
But it could be a long time.
It could be a long time. I mean, I do lots of
Can you
episodes
imagine
with
what this
people.
will do to Russia?
Yes, it will. It's accelerating it towards a collapse. If he stopped a year ago, 2 years ago, if he even stopped now, I don't think the collapse of Russia is in any way inevitable in the short term. If it stopped
And
now, but he's not going to.
And Europeans and Trump will do everything they can to help. They will send
They will
Melania
try.
legs, whatever they need to, drumsticks.
Melania legs, yeah.
They'll do whatever, but Putin won't let them.
No. This is what Anchorage, Alaska. This is what Alaska was all
Absolutely.
about. Let's help this guy to stop his madness, and let's all make some money. No, the Europeans don't say it so blatantly, but frankly, that's the subtext, I think, behind a lot of what they say. Even if they're not looking to make a big, stinking profit out of, jumping bang in bed with cuddly Russia again, they at least just want this problem to go away, because it makes them, it's hard. They want to go back to politics as normal. They want to go back to sort of, playing their little election games and pretending to be leaders. This is hard because you actually have to lead. You actually have to do things. You actually have to spend money. You have to look at your systems and say, hang on a second, our defense organizations are ineffective. Our military equipment's ineffective. Our procurement's ineffective. You have to do some really hard stuff. And I don't think we have a generation of leaders who are really getting to grips with any of that in the large democracies. The longer this goes on, the bigger and more existential these questions are going to become, and the greater leadership it's going to require. This is hard stuff for most of the people in the West. I have hope that someone like Al Khan's, if he gets back into government, is someone who, maybe has the intellectual clout to deal with this. Are there any figures in the US who are really going to get to grips with this? Well, even amongst the best of them, I think there's this tendency to try to, as you say, appease Russia and stop it collapsing, and just,
I guess in the end, I feel like Putin is really burying himself right now, in spite of everybody else's best efforts to save him. So tell me, how does that connect to Great Britain and its efforts to elect new prime minister every few months? Is this like, are you trying to save yourself before a collapse? What's going on?
I know. No, I mean, this, I guess this is slightly tangential. Britain has done within its capacity a lot to help Ukraine. And I believe there are people on the ground doing, some nefarious things, which is great.
But I'm saying, are you in Ukraine because you
yeah.
feel like Ukraine's leadership is more stable and predictable?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, it's not just that. It's not about leadership either. It's just this place is saner. Despite, as I say, 7 cab bombs falling on here, you talk to people and they understand what Russia is, and they understand how to deal with it. And many of them will see the narrative manipulation. They'll see the cognitive warfare. They'll see it coming, and they'll be thinking about how to protect themselves, their institutions, and their society from it. That's why I feel, 1, more comfortable here, but 2, why I think it's so important, because I need to bring those mental tools back to the West, which is entirely unprepared to deal with the other front, which is taking place, which is the cognitive warfare front. Now, Russia and Putin, uncharacteristically perhaps, embarked on this full-scale war before their monetary, political, psychological warfare had hollowed this country out. That was a miscalculation. But they spent many years doing that. They have rather more successfully helped using their money to hollow out and corrupt the West. And we've gleefully embraced that as well. I feel our survival is not just being linked to Ukraine's incredible revolution in technology, which is going to upend so much of our governance and procurement. I don't think many people in the large Western defense primes even understand yet the revolution that's going to be smacking them and destroying their business models. I think even more importantly, perhaps, it's the cognitive resistance to lies at scale that Ukraine can teach us. And if we don't learn those lessons, I fear at this point for the survival of democracy itself.
All right. I love that we're doing this today on Rashkin Report as well. So we have, just a cross of listeners and viewers. And I will say that we're doing a little fundraiser for Ukrainian Army. So if you want to check out that QR code and follow that, make a donation, you'll be doing a good thing. Great comment here from Galina Sergeyeva. Says, hello, Yuri. Your guest is walking around my birthplace, Kharkiv, right next to Держпром, to my university. What a nice surprise. I haven't been there in many years because of war. I've been in Germany. Thank you.
It's a fabulous city. I didn't know what to expect. Many people actually in Lviv and Kyiv are like, yeah, Kharkiv, well, not really my place. And I was told that the impression was formed that I may not like it. I know a few people said it's my favorite place in the whole world, yeah, but a lot of people are like, yeah, it's not really my city. I have to say, this is a great place. This is a great place, and it's got fantastic spirit as well. It's a Ukrainian city, not a Russian city.
How many people I've met, like really nice people from Ukraine, and then it turns out they're from Kharkiv. I don't know how that happens, but another comment from Duke of Shostka. It's the belabored classic of wooden shoes going up the civilizational steps and comfy slippers marching down.
I think that's it. We've built, not only have we made ourselves very comfortable, we have created some of the tools of our own destruction. We've created the rope to hang ourselves, quite frankly, and haven't figured out how to get our necks out of the noose, if I'm going to labor that image a little bit. Social media especially. It's quite clear. I mean, take the example of Laura Loomer, who was massively amplified when she was repeating Russian narratives on social media. The minute she turns around and says, oh, do you know what? I think I've been, propagating some fairly inaccurate things and influenced by Russia, which she came out and said, well, guess what? Analytics has shown that her presence on social media, the impact on audiences, the views, the engagement has dropped through the floor. It's crashed. Was that because suddenly she's talking to a different audience? Or is it the social media platforms are entirely manipulated by nefarious forces? And we don't have the gumption, the imagination, or even the sense of self-preservation to intervene and prevent social media tools that we built supposedly to enhance democracy and civilization. These tools are destroying us from the inside out, and we're willingly allowing our adversaries to manipulate them to achieve that.
Well, I would say that this is a policy problem, because that means that we need to have a talk about, we did ban TikTok until we sold it to friends of Trump. So, I mean, this is a political decision that can be it needs to be addressed through oversight. I wanted to mention as you mentioned, our many Republican listeners, albeit none or maybe one, is that if our president wants to indeed show that he supports Ukraine, not just through begrudgingly, ooh, those Ukrainians, oh, they're pretty good. Or I think he really got excited when he met with Usyk, because that really showed him the strength of Ukraine. That's a strength he can see. So those kinds of moments, I think they're nice. But reality, as Joe Biden said, don't tell me what you like, show me your budget. And what we're seeing is that there's a
Yes.
House Resolution 2913 that passed House of Representatives, and it's stuck in the Senate because it needs 60 votes. And for 60 votes, that means that some Republicans got to get a permission from the president. And that's aid to Ukraine, that's lend-lease, that's sanctions against Russia, that's some common sense. And if we have leadership that really is interested in backing up their words with actions instead of just saying, give us another 2 weeks and see if Ukraine's done, then, it's one thing to look for positive words and positive messaging, but another thing to look for actions. And if there are desire to actually help to do a deal, there's a deal to be made there.
There is. And, it's interesting. I mean, Biden queued up the ability to transfer the IP for interceptors to Ukraine. Now, that may not immediately fix all the problems, but the IP is a big step forward for Ukraine to develop its own interceptors. We've seen that the Flamingo and the various classes of Flamingo have gone from being, relatively inaccurate to start with. Although, there was a little bit of, dare I say it, covering up of that. You probably have to in wartime. They've become increasingly accurate, as we've seen on various strikes on, Russian aviation, airfields. They've got a bunch of planes. They've been taking out the sort of space command navigation forces, of which Russia has 2 major bases. So this stuff is increasing. So Ukraine has, I think, theoretically, the capability to build interceptors, probably to build them at dramatically lower unit cost than the US. Therein might be one of the reasons why, they don't want to hand that stuff over, because not only is Ukraine making certain classes of weapons redundant, someone needs to tell the CEO of Rheinmetall about that and his infamous Lego bricks comment. Housewives playing with Lego bricks, but it's. If Ukraine can build the highest class of Western high-end munitions and improve them and do it for 1/10 of the price, well,
then maybe German housewives are doing the wrong things. I don't know.
Yeah, in German. Well, yeah, I think the German housewives should get out a little bit more, build a few more drones in their basements, be appointed to a few more CEO positions. But you can see why there would be internal resistance, both within donors of politicians, within the Pentagon, with the military establishment, and this is not just US, this is all over. You can see there's an amount of trepidation here that you don't want to suddenly find that your business model, that you've become literally the dinosaur overnight. It's going to take a long time to transition, and they're going to need to pretend that everything is fine until they're a little closer, perhaps, to the point of transitioning. But Ukraine doesn't have the time. They need those interceptors now. As we saw last night, I haven't seen the exact figures, but a majority of those ballistics got through. Russia, suppose, they send them all over in these large wave attacks because it overwhelms their defense. It's designed to cause the maximum carnage. The bit I wanted to kind of end on is the bit that I really focus on. Well, I'm in Kharkiv to do interviews. I wanted to come here and to see what it's all about. We are obviously only 30 miles here from Rusnia. It's not too far away. And in fact, the apartment where I'm staying is quite near, somewhere near one of the parks. Let's be non-specific. But on the first night here, literally all through the evening and night, there was outgoing artillery pointed up towards Belgorod. You can just hear the booms of outgoing artillery. And the air alerts, unlike in Kyiv, which are maybe 2 or 3 a day, here, 9, 10, it's almost going off continuously. And they also distinguish here, they have a different alarm for ballistics, a different alarm for drones. So you can hear immediately whether it's a ballistic strike or not. And then they very helpfully, at the end of the air alarm, tell you exactly what's coming your way. A little voice reads out, Shaheeds heading towards blah, 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 district, etc. So there's a lot more information here, a lot more alerts. I mean, there was one alert yesterday where literally one alert ended and you're like, 2 minutes. 2 minutes after one alert ended, the alarm started straight up again. So you do feel that you're much closer to things here, despite obviously Kyiv was hit very hard, but you really feel close. what that seems to do, now I've obviously been mixing with journalists and civic society people, people who are in volunteer battalions in the military. That's who I've been meeting. So they are the more active, I think, of people. But you do kind of get the impression here that the resilience is a little more personal. The resilience just has that slightly harder edge here. I mean, I've been told that Kharkiv people are a little more direct anyway, by character, but you just get that sense of absolute stubbornness. We're not going anywhere. We're not a Russian city, even though some of us still speak Russian. We're absolute Ukrainian. And you get a sense here that they realize that if this city falls, then the whole of Ukraine is really not so safe. There's a real sense here they're holding the line, and they'll continue to hold it, and an understanding of why it's so important that Kharkiv continues to be that sort of fortress city.
Jonathan, thank you so much to you for keeping us informed, and please do whatever you can to be safe, considering where you are. I will perhaps end with a couple of comments we have from our viewers. Yeah, it's shocking to see Jonathan back in Ukraine so soon. Thank you for these words about my city, writes Galina Sergeyeva. Jonathan, it's really great, and people are very nice too. Perhaps as you're speaking about people being direct, I like that in people. Maybe that's another reason I like Kharkiv people. And Grazdanin writes, there is a video, and it's today's moment of attack by drone against a fitness center in Zaporozhye. In the pool, at that moment, people were swimming. People managed to dive. This is genocide. Kashmar, horror. So, you know, even in spite of the sun being up and everything seems nice and fine, it's not. And so
it's not. That's one final word about Kharkiv for the lovely people who recognized it. You probably can't see it here. Those are flower beds over there.
Yep.
And as I say, there's some parks as well. I haven't honestly seen this anywhere else in Ukraine. Just the absolute neatness of the grass. It's like approaching the English lawn standard. And the flower beds are beautifully tended. And the parks are built of the best quality materials, and they're super well maintained. I came here thinking that this would be, and there's a lot of ruins, and you can see the scars of the missiles, but the streets are clean, and the flower beds are beautiful, and the parks are immaculate. And that's what I didn't expect, but it really tells you something about the character of the city and the people.
Thank you so much. Jonathan Fink, host of Silicon Curtain. My name is Yuri Rashkin. This is Rashkin Report. Thank you, everyone. Take care, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.